principal street here in Dublin is O'Connell Street, and O'Connell Street was at one time known as the noblest avenue in Europe because it was once a very elegant Georgian street. But the 1916 rising was confined almost solely to the city of Dublin, and the street was virtually destroyed at that time. The 1916 rising was very, very important. Although it was considered to be a failure, it was quelled by the Crown forces. However, it led the way to us becoming a free state, and that happened in 1922, and we were declared a republic in 1949. The most prominent building in O'Connell Street, and perhaps in the city, is the General Post Office, or the GPO, because that was the headquarters for those who were involved in the 1916 rising. We know the General Post Office as the birthplace of our nation because it was from there in 1916 that one of our patriots, his name was Paulie Pearse, he was a teacher by profession. He read out the Proclamation of Independence, and he was one of 14 that was executed by the Crown forces. Now, the Spire of Dublin is a new addition to the street. It's been there since about 2002. It's a modern piece of street furniture, and the Spire of Dublin is now known as the stiletto in the ghetto. We've also several other statues in O'Connell Street. Another one is to Father Matthew. He founded the largest temperance movement outside the Islamic world. It's called the Pioneers. Also, we have the Parnell Monument to Charles Stewart Parnell. But the street is called after Daniel O'Connell. Daniel O'Connell, our liberator. He was champion of the Catholic people, and he fought for their rights. And the street is called after him. We have the Garden of Remembrance, which is dedicated to those who gave their lives for the cause of Irish freedom. We have many other statues, of course, and street furniture scattered around the city. One of the best loved monuments in the city is to Molly Malone. And there's a little song about Molly. It's known as the Dublin Anthem, and it says that she wheels her wheelbarrow through streets broad and narrow. Crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Well, the story goes that our Molly did exist and did indeed sell cockles and mussels, shellfish. She sold them in the daytime, however. But Molly had a nighttime job as well, and Molly is known as the tart with the cart. And almost everybody who comes to Dublin City wants their photograph taken alongside Molly Malone. She's a voluptuous lady, and you have to come to Dublin to see her statue, and you will know what I'm talking about. We're in Cook Street, and this is all that remains of the walls of the old medieval city of Dublin. It was a very small city, and it was walled. And in medieval times, the city was contained inside the walls. And you can see the only remaining gate left with the date over it, 1240. In medieval times, outside the walls of the city, all this area outside the walls was known as the Liberties, and it's still known as the Liberties to this day. Now that would be liberty, that's free. The people who lived outside the walls, they would be free of the city taxes, but they would also have been without the protection of the city fathers. The Famine Memorial, which is a group of 6 emaciated figures on the banks of the River Liffey, and it is in connection with the famine of 1845. It lasted for 5 years to 1850, and this famine was all due to the failure of the potato crop, because the potato was the staple food of people here in this country all those years ago. That was also the start of the hemorrhage of people from this country. Over 2 million people died of starvation, and as many more went to the States on ships which were known as coffin ships, because they were, the conditions on board the ships were absolutely appalling, and very many people died. The cross behind me is located in the Phoenix Park, Dublin. And the Phoenix Park is 1,700 acres. It's the Pope's cross because the Pope came here on the 29th of September 1979. It was an absolutely beautiful day. The sun was shining and there was a wonderful, wonderful atmosphere. And in actual fact, there was a very short time allotted to us here in this country to get ready for the Pope because we didn't know whether he was coming or not. And the cross and the mound that you see, as I say, was erected for that occasion. It's known as the Pope's Cross. It was Pope John Paul II. The cross is illuminated. You can see the light strips there in the centre of the cross. And it lights up for miles and miles around. On the 29th of September, the Pope flew from Rome. He flew our local airlines, which was Aer Lingus. The plane flew over here. There was 1.5 million people in front of the cross there waiting for the Pope. The plane flew across right over the sky and it was the most wonderful moving moment. Everybody, there was the emotion, it was palpable at that particular time. Well, you're all very welcome here to St. Patrick's Cathedral here in Dublin. And this is the largest church in Ireland and it's built on the oldest Christian site in Dublin City. This cathedral is dedicated to our patron saint, St. Patrick. It's Gothic in style and you'll know that by its shape. All the statues and the monuments that you see around are of a secular nature. There are only 2 religious statues here in the cathedral. The largest monument in the cathedral is that one behind you and against the wall. It's the Boyle Monument, and it was erected by Richard Boyle in memory of his wife Catherine and also of his son Robert, who subsequently went on to become a very famous scientist. And it was he who discovered the difference between the temperature and the pressure of a gas. This church was consecrated in 1192 and it underwent major restoration over the years. If I was around since 1192, I too would need some restoration. Now, the Guinness family presented that wonderful stained glass window to the cathedral in memory of Sir Benjamin Lee Guinness, and it's known as the Guinness window. These flags you see up here, well, a lot of them are the British flag because we were under British rule for almost 800 years, and these would have been Irish regiments within the British Army. The plaque that you see at eye level behind you, behind me, in front of you, it has a cross of poppies on it. That commemorates the Irish men who fought in the 2 world wars. Now, the Knights of St. Patrick was an order of chivalry. It would be in line with the Order of the Thistle in Scotland or the Order of the Garter in England, but the order was disbanded when we became free in 1922. And when they came here to pray, these are the pews they would have sat in. There's their flags. They left behind their helmets. The little blue sash is that of the Order of the Knights, and strapped to the pews is their ceremonial swords. It's in these pews to this day that the choir sits. And music here in this cathedral is very important. In fact, the only choir school we have here in the country is just across the way from the road from here. And it is absolutely magnificent. They have a wonderful, wonderful choir. And the acoustics here in the cathedral are excellent as well. Now, both this cathedral and Christ Church are both Church of Ireland, or Protestant, Episcopalian if you like. We don't have a Catholic cathedral in Dublin City, which is rather strange. because over 95% of the people of the Republic of Ireland are Catholic. Both of these cathedrals, however, were Catholic up to the time of the Reformation, 1537. That was when the British monarchy broke away from the Church of Rome, and that was during the reign of King Henry VIII. There was not then, nor is there to this present day, divorce in the Catholic Church. The king, he sought the permission of the Pope to marry Anne Boleyn. Permission was refused. Well, the rest, as they say, is history. And that was the time when the British monarchy broke away from the Church of Rome. That was the Reformation, 1537. That was the time when the monasteries were dissolved, and that was also the time when both this cathedral and Christ Church were taken over by the Reformed Church, and they remain so to this day. Here in this country, I'm very glad to be able to tell you, and this is a fact, that here in the Republic of Ireland, we have and always have had total tolerance for all religions. It doesn't matter what anybody is. There's no animosity whatsoever between any religions here in the Republic. Okay folks, so Trinity College University, Dublin. This is Ireland's oldest university. It was founded in 1592 by charter of Queen Elizabeth I, and it was founded for the purpose of educating young men to the ministry and to the Protestant cause. And for many, many years, this college was not open to either Jews or Catholics. It's now, however, totally non-sectarian. It has a student population of approximately 14,000. And they're as noisy, can you hear them all over the place? They're only starting back today. Now, this college stands on the site of an old Augustinian monastery which had been dissolved. Queen Elizabeth I, she was the daughter of Henry VIII. He was responsible for the Reformation, and this college stands on the site of this old Augustinian monastery. There's no trace left of it. Actually, the oldest buildings in the college are those red ones, those red bricked ones down there on my left. They're the rubrics. They date to the year 1700. All these other buildings around these ones here, they date to the middle of the 1700s. But the building that the students like best is the one behind me with the clock on it. And why do you think that might be? Because there's a bar in there. That's why. Either side of the campanile there are two statues. This one here is Professor Lecky, and this other man here, I refuse to look at him, Professor Salmon. Now, Professor Salmon was very, very much opposed to women entering this university. And he said, women, he said, will enter this university only over my dead body. Well now, ladies, I want to tell you he's buried here in the grounds of the college. And what do us ladies do every day of the week? Yes, we walk over his dead body. Trinity College houses what is arguably the finest manuscript in the world, and that's the Book of Kells. And the Book of Kells is a 9th century manuscript. It's a copy of the 4 Gospels, which has been illustrated and illuminated by monks in Kells. Kells is a town in County Meath and is about 40 miles north of the city. Essentially what the Book of Kells is, it's a masterpiece of Celtic art. That's essentially what it is. It's written on vellum and in Latin by the monks. Now the campanile here holds two bells, and it stands exactly where the spire of the old Augustinian church was. Now it is said that these bells ring only when a virgin walks through that archway. I haven't heard the bells for years.